must keep sport and politics separate. No, sport is politics.
Yes.
The way of the world. It was invented as a political thing by the Greeks. The Romans perfected it, and it's been that way ever since. Happy Christmas.
Hello! You are listening to Talking Utter Slot, the podcast about having fun with toy cars, scalextric ones, that kind of thing, you know, or Carrera if you're listening in Germany, or Revel if you're listening in America. Anyway, slot cars. My name's Scott.
And I'm Nick, and I've got super glue on my glasses, which is really causing me problems. And the reason I've got super glue on my glasses, unfortunately they do come off, it's just on the lenses, is that I've been building far too many slot cars in the week before Christmas. And so inadvertently sort of went like that. And now the world's a bit of a blur, which is sort of a spur to get my new glasses sorted out anyway.
Is it having any detrimental effect on your painting? I mean, are you getting the lines vaguely where they should be?
There's always some discussion about that. But no, yeah. A little bit. No, I take them off to do the painting.
Okay, just so it's, you'd let the artistic muse take flight. See,
yeah, I don't want to see it. I want to see the end result.
You just trust in fate to put the paint where it needs to be painted. That's just very good. I think therefore we should really kick off by what have you been painting, building then?
Yeah.
I know, obviously, but I'm going to pretend not for the purposes of the audience.
So there's one that's just about finished, bar some Michelin decals, which I can't find anywhere. So if any viewers, listeners, people that just stumbled across this and go, oh, I've got those decals. Yeah, it's the Michelin late 1990s that was prevalent in the World Rally Championship. Yes, we're talking about slot rally cars again. Sorry. I built Richard Burns's 1998, 25 years ago. Can you believe it? And it was 18 years ago.
The crowd sees car and goes, ooh, pretty slot car.
So this is the new ScaleAuto Evo 5. Evo 6s are available. Actually, I think it's just the headlight that was different. It's here. It's going to be very quick because it's ScaleAuto. It's inline, and therefore you think, ooh, it's Slot Rally GB compatible. But no, it is not, because ScaleAuto, in its infinite wisdom, has made it a foot too wide in scale, which means that it's 62 millimeters from the outside of each tyre on the rear axle, which means that it can't go into the 80s and 90s slot rally class because it needs to be 60 millimeters across. Now, you could, in theory, take the four-wheel drive band off and the pulley system and push the wheels in by 2 mil, but why would you do that? Don't know. So I probably will, and I'll probably put Staff's wheels on it because I find these wheels quite disappointing. The inserts stick out proud. I've sanded them down, and they still stick out proud. So, which
that is a bit odd, isn't it? Because it's a bit odd. Is that because they're trying to
little number plate on the front made that one? Because
tell everybody why. I know the story, but tell everybody why.
Well, when you put the lamp pods on the front, it covers up the number plate. And also, the British government isn't too keen on people just sticking a sticker on the front bumper pointing that way when the police have got their cameras pointing at you that way. So
yeah, I remember the other thing. Some foreign rally cars was tiny little, almost motorcycle-size number plates, wouldn't they? And every now and again, a copper would go, "You're not having that, mate. Yeah, get something big on there." Oh, that's good. Have you run it at all yet? No, you haven't run it. It's not been.
Not yet. No. But I have, been sort of super detailing the crew, and the driver, the co-driver, Robert Reed, has actually got multiple pages of notes in his hands, and yeah, they're quite cool. But yeah, it was 25 years ago last month that Richard won what was billed as the Battle of Britain between him and Colin McRae. And it was 18 years ago yesterday, we're filming on Monday, that we lost Richard to cancer. So it seems like yesterday. The rally seems like yesterday, but losing Richard seems like yesterday.
It's yeah, the time does seem to have galloped on. This may be because we're getting old, but it could also because nothing terribly interesting has happened. Or that's wrong, Sebastian Loeb and but there's been very few people not called Sebastian winning rallies in the intervening period. So they kind of all, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Loeb is fantastic, but yeah, it's just, pick a year, they all look the same kind of thing. And so that gets a bit, I think that's partly why, but mostly it's probably because we're old. That's very old.
So, another thing I'm doing is my Ford Escort RS2000 Mark 1, one of two. So using the Airfix 1/32 scale kit, 100 years old. Many people have converted into slot cars. I haven't so far. I got two for tenner. So I was like,
I'm amazed they were that cheap, to be honest. I thought those kits were really rare, but obviously not.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence is selling me one of his, so that's one. And then I've got another one. Facebook Marketplace is brilliant. It's totally different to eBay in that people just stick old toot on there. And it was in a mix of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll give you $5 for that. I went, okay. So that was cool. I only wanted the body anyway. So, that's actually, quite serious money for the number of components I'm using. And yeah, Lawrence bought a twin pack with the Ford Focus and the Escort from Airfix. The Ford Focus being the scalextric model turned into a static kit, which he's now turning back into a scalextric model because he's crazy. It's not like there's not too many scalextric Ford Focuses around.
It's not rare. Are those? I've never bought one of those. Are they literally just the slot car without the motor and the guide? Then I mean, it's the same chassis and the same, or has it got a different chassis on it?
Yeah, the chassis has been sort of filled in, but yeah, it's largely the same. I bought the Ford Fiesta and Mini WRC pair, thinking, excellent, this is a cheap way to build a couple of slot cars. No, they learnt the lesson. They've actually turned those into proper kits, although they are still, the bodies are based on the slot cars, but they are different, which is annoying because I wanted to do a Mini with that. I just was so bored of stripping liveries, particularly scalextric liveries, because they just, now that they're all one decal, they turn into this sort of concrete mush that takes, once you've broken it down enough to be able to pull it off sort of a thing, it's then stuck forever as a mush. So yeah, that's annoying. And so is the Airfix kits. But no, Lawrence wanted to build, and he is building on a 3D chassis, a scalextric Focus, which you can do easily from the Airfix kit as it was.
Well, as you know, a bit of a sort of sideways step in that. As you know, I've been having another one of my little solo rallies. I'm in the midst of it. I've only done 2 stages. Having a lot of fun. Thank you very much. But the thinking about slot rally for next year and all the classes and things, and I lobbied hard for there to be a standard scalextric class because, as you know, because you've been rallying more recently than I have, there's a lot of speed crazed morons with wide, with cars going very fast, which are very low, very heavy, all very tuned. So although I think it slightly breaks the rules because you're only allowed 2 cars in any given class, I think, out of your 4-car entry, I'm definitely going to enter 2 standard scalextric cars.
Excellent.
Partly because I'm lazy, because I can't be bothered tuning lots of things, but also because I think that's really what we should do. And the other 2, I might, just as a kind of prototype for next year, run standard SCX cars.
Okay.
Because they're cheap and cheerful and readily available, and if people wanted to run them, I would do Carrera, but there aren't very many Carrera rally cars. They're pretty thin on the ground, those. But I think there's 2 or 3, but that's about it.
the
and a Subaru
Subaru
and a
and the
Peugeot. There's a
GL8.
Peugeot. Yeah. So there's not many. So I don't expect I'll do terribly well, which would be great. But I won't have spent hours having a lot of fun, having a lot of frustration. Sorry, trying to tune a car. So that's my. So I don't know. Scalextric's focus.
SDX and scalextric are a separate, so it doesn't really matter what class they're in, does it? It's like whoever's the fastest standard scalextric 1, 2, 3, and the standard SCX 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter what class they're in.
I don't think there is. There's definitely a standard scalextric class. I don't know if that's a subset. So it would be a standard scalextrics, but it's in modern or whatever. Class within the class.
So it's 1, 2, 3 overall. So
okay, well,
that's why that's what sparked my Subaru thing, because I'm pretty sure that the Subaru is going to be one of the better cars. I've also got this scalextric Stratos.
Oh,
which
I've never. Mm-hmm.
It does everything that I really, really, really get cross with scalextric for. It's got an FF motor, it's got a fixed front axle, it's got a little guide. But I took it to a board track, what are they called? Pinewood. We took it to Pinewood when we went to look at their 1/32nd scale track as a potential new home when we left Farnham for what turned out to be Farnborough. And we just took along some odd cars, and I took this odd car. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant on wood. It's really, really smooth, with the controller turned all the way down, because it's an FF motor, with no magnet. It was a gem to drive, and I'm thinking, life in it as a slot rally car. So, and so Lawrence and I both sort of spend a lot of the week pontificating on which standard scalextric car in particular, because SCX cars will all cope with a slot rally. They're just not going to be as quick as the modern SRCs, NSRs, etc.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There are some cars. My team slot car at the last one I did on Rob's wood routed track was great, really smooth and fast, and that was the first stage I did. So it was a bit of a false dawn. And then it was on to all the old scalextrics and cut up Ninko and all that sort of thing. And it was terrible, because anytime there was a bump, it was just bump, 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 bump. There was getting kicked all over the place because it's rigid, there's no suspension. So I think if you could guarantee that all the stages were going to be made from wood, Carrera, scalextric Sport, or Polycar, then you would be. But then that's kind of like real rallying, isn't it? If it was a tarmac rally, then be fine. But it's off road.
Yeah.
So I just decided I'm going to try and do that, but we'll see. I may change my mind, because it's not. When's the first round? March, months away. Also launched this week from Polycar is a Lotus 72, which was driven by Jochen Rindt, notable for two reasons. One, it doesn't have any wings, because they were running at Monza. This is 1970, early days of the Lotus 72. And to go a bit faster, they tried it without a rear wing or any nose wings. Now, I don't know how much downforce was being produced by 1970s Grand Prix wings. Probably some, but not a huge amount by anywhere near today's standards. And my recollection, your motorsport knowledge is better, my recollection, he crashed in that car, and it was a fatal accident. He died. But it wasn't not having the wings that did it. I think it was the brakes that failed, I think. Was it? So that car has been modelled. So it's famous as it's the car which Jochen Rindt died in, as was earlier this year the Gilles Villeneuve car. And I think we've talked about this before. Is that somehow or other, is that in bad taste? Is that commemorating something? That car actually happened. It's not being modelled in a mangled up form. It's modelled as it raced, or practiced in that case. And I remember several years back, I was a big mini champs collector, so lots of DTM cars and Formula One cars, and then they branched out into sort of other stuff. And one of the cars they made was the Lincoln convertible that JFK was assassinated whilst he was in, with little JFK and Jackie sat in the back. And you go, okay, that's and again, they weren't modelled post the interaction of Lee Harvey Oswald, but that's what makes it. That's what gives it the interest, as it were. Now, whether that's no, it definitely was. having
I just
listened to
love that
7
Bill Hicks
hours
joke,
worth of.
'cause the Bill Hicks joke when he's saying that he went to the book depository in Dallas and they've got it all fenced off, and he's like, and they now call it the sniper's nest, and he said it's exactly how it was on the day because Oswald's not in there. The reason why they fenced it off is that anyone could go up to the window and go, "There's no way! I can't even see the road. What?" So yeah, that was.
No, well, I heartily having had my other favourite podcast, The Rest is History, just a couple of weeks ago did 7 episodes, which sounds like a lot, but it was good, on the assassination and the police investigation and the subsequent checks and indeed the conspiracy theories, which range as wide as aliens. So every other government under the sun, everybody. But and apparently, as part of that, despite what it says in the Oliver Stone's movie and the JFK movie, other marksmen have tried to do the same frequency and accuracy and have beaten it. It's not they can do it. So it's not quite the mystery that that movie tried to paint it out to be. Still a good movie. Anyway, but I digress. The point being that models of things, and if you start to sort of think, well, you make a model of something. I mean, if you make a model of Enola Gay, so the B-29 that dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, if you're going to make a model of a B-29, you're probably going to make Enola Gay. But even if you make a model of any military vehicle that took part in a conflict, not only was it designed to kill people, it probably actually did. Turning to, I won't ask what you're getting for Christmas because I probably, like me, you're not getting a slot car because people never buy you slot cars because they always say, I don't know which one to get you. And the answer is, anyone. Anyway, just get me. Leading up to Christmas, of course, all the brands have been doing, or not all the brands, I think most of them have been doing some sort of thing. So several things have stood out for me, one of which, and neither of us are wearing it because we didn't get sent one, frankly. I mean, I think we might have worn one had we been sent one, which was a Scalextric Christmas jumper.
Oh, yeah, saw those.
So, I mean, I don't know what they're made of, but they're very bright.
If it's like my Beatles one, it's probably very flammable wool.
I worry most of the time about these things are they're kind of designed for one, possibly 2 uses, aren't they? But, you know, they're not the most fire retardant things. So that's Scalextric to do it, but they're also doing, as part of their kind of countdown, their advent, if you will, they've blurred out what are supposed to be pictures of soon-to-be-announced new cars. I think there's been 2 of them, and I'll put images onto the YouTube thing. But obviously, a verbal description of a blurred image is imagine something slightly grey and fuzzy. That's as good as it's going to get. Yeah. But one of them, to me, looks very much like a New York taxi cab, as in, you know, the big yellow thing.
It does, and I agree with you on that. In fact, when I emailed Simon on something completely unrelated this week, I said, "Oh, well done for making a checker cab." No reply, obviously, but it was like, well, that's what it is to me.
Okay. And the other one looks like a sort of Bugatti stroke some sort of mid-engined exotica sports car thing. So I don't know what they've not made or what they've got to update. McLaren, maybe? Not McLaren. What's the new one? Yeah, calling it McLaren. Freudian slip. The Gordon Murray car, which just looks like a McLaren for obvious reasons.
Oh, has Gordon got a new car out? Okay.
Well, yes. They're made just along the road from us, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing that's interesting, I think Scalextric guys have said this, but certainly Airfix have, and as you know, the same company, that rather than do the beginning of the year, here's everything we're going to make for the year announcement, because they then get grief from everybody going, oh, why is that not arrived yet? They're just going to announce some things, then they're going to do announcements throughout the year. So I don't know if we probably won't get a big sort of 50-car announcement in January. And having said that, we might do it. But so I think there may just be a drip of a couple of them. But one which is not an overt hint, but it is, but not by them. So racing in the recent Gulf 12-hour race, endurance race, was a GT3 Ferrari, the new one, 293. And the livery, and again I'll put pictures up, was mostly red and blue with written prominently across all its flanks and its wing the words Carrera and Revel. Now, call me suspicious, but I would be surprised if they would sponsor a car that they're not going to make a model of. That would seem odd. So I'm predicting, based on a real one, that that's going to be a new Carrera. And when I asked my chap at Carrera, he said, "There's enough leaks, I'm not telling you anything." So Dave Slotcar, who, for those of us, so if you're looking for on YouTube for Slotcar, slot with an R, and he's been doing a daily Advent countdown. And Dave's famous on his videos when he's making stuff for the track or cars of drinking a lot of coffee. So there's always sort of lots of cups of coffee evident in his videos. So he's got something which I presume is 24 different coffees from around the world in little pouches. So each one starts with a new coffee for the day, which he makes. Then he's got a car from his collection, which he talks about and why it was significant to him or whatever. And then he tells what he's attributing to, and perhaps this is, we have to take his word for it, one of his wife's bad Christmas cracker style jokes. So as I say, it's all good. The jokes are, shall we say, as variable as the coffee. But having to produce 5-minute little videos on a daily basis, because he can't just use the same thing. He's got to film it all, each one. I admire his dedication to the task.
How much stuff has he built in the Advent period so far?
Well, he's not. It's things he's already got. In terms of the cars, it's cars he's already got. But so each one is a different coffee and a different joke. But he's talking about this was his first car, or his first Revo slot, or which car he uses as a camera car when he does the filming, that sort of thing. So,
right.
But in other videos, yeah, he's built things for the track or he's modified cars. He's really into his Revo slot. He's a big Revo slot fan.
Oh, we had a question, didn't we? We had a question about the NASCARs.
Ah, yes, your NASCARs.
Shall I do a quick run through? They are, in fact, they were correctly identified by a person as being 124 diecasts. Some of them are signed. Bubba Wallace here is signed. So I've got 3 at the bottom here. 1, 2, 3, which are my favourite podcasters. The spotters for those cars have a show called Door Bumper Clear, which is on every Tuesday after each NASCAR race. Spotters are extremely garrulous people. They have very, very few self-censorship tools available to them. And they they quite often turn up drunk as well because, the race is finished, so they go to the bar and then fly home and record on a Monday. And it's always very entertaining. And through lockdown, when our industry stopped, it sort of kept me going. So this one is a particular favourite. Brett Griffin, who's probably the biggest motor mouth in NASCAR, was the spotter for this car. This was Clint Bowyer's car, and it was sponsored by Barstool Sports. And so Barstool Sports it's an American website which does news from all sorts of sports. They took an interest in NASCAR, and they sponsored Clint Bowyer for a race with this ridiculous livery, which says things like, too big, too strong, too American. And back-to-back World War champs. And USA, undefeated since 1776. Which, historically, you might want to ask yourself a question about that.
Cuba, Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all of that stuff. Then there's a Bubba Wallace car because Freddie Kraft is on the show. He's very funny. TJ Majors used to spot for Dale Jr., and then he went to Joey Logano, and everyone hated him because not many people like Joey Logano. And then he does still spot for Junior when he makes his comeback drives. So I've got a Junior Xfinity car spotted by TJ, and then all the rest of these ones up here are my Dale Junior and Dale Senior cars. And so the KFC one is the one that got me into the sport. It's the first race I watched in its entirety, the Winn-Dixie 250, and Dale got punted off at the same point where his father was killed in 2000. This was in 2004. 3 years later, Dale Jr. got punted off at the same place, and they interviewed him afterwards. And the interview he gave was so good, that's sort of what sold me on the sport. And then up here, this is a particular favourite, Dale Senior's car when he won Talladega, going from 17th to 1st in 5 laps at the end. Unbelievable stuff, with the big donut on the side that he got from sort of nerfing his way through. So, yeah, that's what sits in the background of my podcast. And
have you got any slot NASCARs?
I've got, yes, lots. And lots that I have built. And so Carrera is probably going to see some business off me, which Mark put that one in the history books. Yeah, for the next gen cars which they're bringing out.
So does that mean that you are like me, prone to the fantasy of a routed sort of semi-scale banked oval?
Yes.
To run NASCARs on? Yes.
My former father-in-law, for want of a better description.
No, that's pretty accurate. It's got all the tenses and relationship there. We can plot that one.
He ran a club for more than 40 years, probably closer to 50 years, on a scale quarter mile, running brisker stock cars and bangers. That was some of the most fun racing you can do. It was 4 cars at a time, staggered at the start because obviously the lane lengths are different, and they have a pinch down the back straight and a pinch round 180 degrees so that, plenty of contact occurs. So it's a bit like racing at Farnborough, really. But we don't need the pinches.
I was going to say, some people don't need narrow tracks. But that's a whole other kettle of hornets.
And he and I often talked about maybe a half-mile banked track, because he routed his own track. He was an engineer at Ford's. And he knew his way to engineer pretty much anything. And it was occasionally a conversation.
I often kind of, the IRL cars and the NASCARs, I think, wouldn't these be fantastic? Just sort of standing there, that kind of sweep that you get. I've only been to one NASCAR race, so it's probably having too much of an impact on me, but that kind of where you can see the banking. And of course, the thing is, you want to run digital because you want 10 or 20 cars sort of chasing after each other. Yeah. But I think probably you would go to months of effort and considerable expense to build such a track. And then you would run on it for 15 minutes, half an hour and go, it's a bit dull, isn't it?
I built one out of Carrera.
And the bankings are too tight, aren't they?
For the Radius 4 and Radius 3. And yeah, that you need 4 people committed to it. You need to be at sort of the same level. Then it can sort of work. And you watch the videos online of people that build big Carrera tri-ovals and stuff for their vintage Carrera NASCARs in America and Canada. And yeah, when they're really going for it. But it probably works better as digital than analog, possibly.
You need a lot of cars and that kind of, bumping and gently changing lanes. So
my wife's already said many, many times, you can race toy cars, that's absolutely fine. You can build toy cars, that's absolutely fine. But if you get into the digital arena and start putting in pit stops and stuff and doing strategies, I am leaving.
That's interesting that she's that aware of the intricacies of. So it's not just a blanket toy cars, that she understands there's a digital element and so you've obviously been talking about it then.
I did sort of say, I think it was, you think I'm bad, there are guys that do this.
I thought you were trying to throw somebody else under the bus to make yourself look good.
Totally,
you'll never believe these saddos.
Yeah, quite. And she was like, well, at that point, if I see one of those coming in the house, I'm off.
She'd never know, mate. Unless she looks underneath for the diode, she'd never know. You'd be all right. You'd be all right. Now, the other thing that I was going to... last show, you were champing at the bit for the post, but some things arrived. So let's have a bit of show and tell for the...
Okay.
What did you... What eventually arrived, I should say.
Yeah, my Black Friday purchase from Spain, because it's sold out everywhere. I don't think we got many in Britain of the Danny Sordo 2020 Rally Sardinia winning Hyundai. I think most of them went to Spain because obviously Danny Sordo things sell out in seconds in Spain. And I've seen the Nils Solans livery that came out after that, and there are many, many Rallycross liveries for it because SCX is pushing the Rallycross. Anyway, that was considerably cheaper to buy in Spain and have posted here on a Black Friday deal than it would ever have been, even if I'd have found them when they were in stock. So, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping at Christmas somebody buys me the newly released Oit Tanak 2023 SCX Puma to run with it. And also, yeah, because that's a rally that I worked on. I did Safari Rally this year, so it would be nice to have a set of... I've got 2022 and 23. Actually, no, I just want the Puma. I've got 2022 and 2023 kits of the Toyota Yaris. In fact, I should have got that one out because the Yaris kit is here somewhere. That's just arrived. And numerous car of the year things. Most beautiful car of the year. Best car of the year. For me, there's no competition. That is the car of the year. They drive, I am told, you've told me, in fact, that they drive sweetly out of the box.
Very nice, yeah. Well, my one, I mean, I can only talk about the one I've got, yeah.
They look the business. They are in line. They've got a tray interior. There's no messing about. None of it full interior. No messing about. And there are things of loveliness. So we look forward with bated breath to what the 2024 Rover releases are. I imagine they're going to be like the Sierras are in my house and plentiful over the next few years.
I hope so. I think it's one of, I mean, again, that's occasional free advice to slot car manufacturers. If I worked at Scalextric, and clearly I don't, if I worked at Scalextric, I would be mining some of those recent / not that old molds that they've got, because I don't think they made that many Sierras. I don't think they made, like 6R4s. There's still 6R4 liveries that could be done, Quattro liveries. There seems to be a lot of recent cars which could have been done rather than just doing, I don't know, half a dozen liveries. They could be every year. You could always have in this year's livery of, maybe not every year. And I know we're mad keen on certain eras, but it seems to be all the evidence suggests that kind of 90s, 80s, 90s is the sweet spot at the minute for nostalgia. So I'm hoping. In my little rally that I'm having at the minute, I'm running 2 of my SCX Sierras. Boy, what a nice car that is! It's SCX didn't used to be. The axles weren't always straight. The gears didn't always mesh. All that kind of stuff. But when you got a sweet one, they were lovely. I've got 3 of those Sierras, and they all run absolutely sweet as a nut.
They are very good cars.
Yeah,
I had one, sold it, and I want to get another one because I want to paint it pink because the Mr. Tompkinson Gwyndaff Evans livery is available.
Okay.
And I don't have a Gwyndaff car, and I feel there's a hole in my collection without the car that Gwyndaff drove.
You've got, since last week, there is a Seat. There was a short run of a Seat that he ran in the British Championship. No, if you need a pink car, then if it's a very short collection of pink cars, that'd be that one. I think I pulled out the cupboard when I sat back down, which would not make any sense if I edit that bit out. But I sat back down. Is my Christmas car. I'm very fond of this for a number of reasons, because I think it's sort of suitably well. So it's a Mercedes SLR, but on white wall tyres, which I don't think they ever ran on, but that's fine. And it's got Santa driving, of course, the big man. But in the passenger seat is a baby in a basket, apparently not secured in any shape or form, and facing forward rather than rearward. So have to have a word there. That the baby has a halo, so maybe his protection is superior to
a replica of how I was brought home from hospital in the back of an MG midget.
Did you have a halo, Nick?
I didn't have a halo, no.
Are you claiming some sort of minor definition?
The only halo I've ever had, you put on me last week digitally.
Oh yes, I did. Yeah. Well, I just think the notion, the number of the Santa, the baby Jesus being delivered in a vintage Mercedes sports car. Yeah. I think the tyres are about as hard as a hazelnut, but there is a magnet still there. But anyway, I shall take it out and give it a few parade laps, which I might put up as a little short if I can manage to film and drive at the same time.
Well, my parents, they brought me home from hospital having just been born in an MG midget, which meant taking my carry cot and wedging it behind their seats. Sort of a hands device if it won't move.
It's. I was going to say, well, you're quite a bit younger than me, so I was going to say back in those days, it was perfectly acceptable.
I'm pretty sure they were both smoking at the time. As they drove me back from the hospital, wedged in behind their two seats in the two-seat car. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and none of it has done you any harm whatsoever.
None at all.
You haven't ended up car crazy or anything just because you went home in an MG midget. That's good. No. Right. Shall we call it a day?
I'll tell you what. I've tried valiantly to keep off slot rally cars, but we're going to have to edit some of this stuff out anyway. So I'll stick something in which could be serviceable.
Your optimism with my editing skills. What I really need is some sort of, that kind of elevator. Vision on, yeah. Maybe we'll have a little sort of.
So,
there's an in-joke.
3D chassis have arrived for Slot Rally GB next year, so I'm going back to rally cars again. This is safe there. I can't go too far off piste. 3D chassis for this one.
Oh! I may have to do a Vic Rees rub of my thighs. That is one of the liveries which I would really, really love.
It was a disaster in terms of the fact that the Audi Quattro. Yeah, it's a pretty thing, that's for sure. So it's Michel Mouton, Fabrizio Pons, Tour de Course, which was a rally that the Audi Quattro hated because it didn't have a handbrake and it wasn't very good on asphalt. And then towards the end, they just didn't bother going to Corsica. But then, so I've got a 3D chassis for that one, which should make it a bit better. And it will have some Staff's wheels, which have become sort of like, it always reminds me of The League of Gentlemen, which was a comedy show on BBC Two. Sort of a dark comedy set in a town in the middle of nowhere, kind of based on The Wicker Man, but in the north of England. And there was Hilary Briss, the butcher, who had special stuff that people would go in for. Have you got any of the special stuff here? Nobody ever knew what the special stuff was. It was just left to your imagination what it might be. And in the same tone of voice, people talk about Staff's wheels. So,
do they? I'm not sure. I mean, I think you can order them quite freely. I don't think you have to wander up to the counter sideways and go, have you got any Staff's wheels?
Yeah. People go, that's nice. Are you going to put some Staff's wheels on it? Because it's just become a thing now. It's like they are renowned for their...
I'm sure Steve's delighted. So you buy a slot car and you have to buy new tyres and you have to buy new wheels. I mean,
and a new chassis. which
On a
means
new
a new motor
chassis.
and a new guide, new axles, and new gears. Apart from that,
Apart from that, yeah.
So I've got this one to do that to.
Uh-huh.
I've got this one to do that to.
Ah, I've got exactly that, but for some reason it's got no rear axle, and I can't. I've obviously used it for something else, and I can't
Well,
think
I'll tell you
what.
what. Buy a new rear axle and put some Staff's wheels on it.
No, well, I see. I quite like them as they come out of the box, so I've had to try and source the reback. Now, is that fly or
This is a fly, which means it's considerably wider than
It's
most
wider.
other BMWs. So that will have a 3D chassis under it. And
Yeah.
so will this little fella.
Ah, that's not
The
wide.
scalextric skinny.
It's definitely not
But there
wide.
are some stages where a thin car helps you. Oh, and my SRC beater. So if you look at the results of any slot rally in the past couple of years, the SRC Lancia Delta S4 is now the king of the crop. The Peugeot 205 was beforehand. So I'm building a black
037.
Fly 037, which will have a 3D chassis from Slotting Plus. It will have SRC working bits. It will have slotted suspension. And it will have Staff's wheels.
Okay.
Are you getting some
That's-
Staff's wheels for that? Yes, I am. Yes.
And
Not
what
only
livery
that-
are you?
Not only
Uh-huh.
that, getting the air hubs.
Oh, right. Okay.
In there. So yeah,
I
special
don't
stuff.
believe that's very good. Yeah. What livery are you going to paint? See, this is me. I don't care what hubs you've got. What livery are you going to put on it?
This is going to be, it's a black car with the Martini livery stripes, which ran in historic competition a few years ago, about 10 years ago. And a mate of mine, Nico Klinger, who now works as the deputy safety delegate for the WRC, he's Michel Mouton's number 2. He co-drove that car, and Nico co-drove many French people primarily, also some Belgians. Anyone that basically wanted their notes read very well in a French accent, and possibly in French.
Possibly.
They called on Nico, and he's a top sort of a chap, and I wanted something a bit different, and I just think if you're not going to beat really good guys with SRC cars by running the same SRC cars, because they're going to be much better than you are. So try and build something a little bit lower using SRC technology, and try not to crash as often. That's my plan.
It's good to have a plan. I think it's always good to have a plan.
That's my 2024 resolution, is to not drop as much time being off the track on rally stages.
Being off the track. It's always good. And we should finish with a sort of festive, because there is going to be a sort of dress rehearsal rally at the Farnborough Club, isn't there, in the 27th of December?
We are 27th of December. Not all the membership was consulted about this, but we don't tend to have a meeting between Christmas and New Year. It's normally fallow. And this year, because we've only just done a rally in Abergavenny, Lawrence and I were sort of quite G'd up, and we're hosting an event next year and probably taking part in the championship. So we said we'll do a mini slot rally on the 27th, starting at 2 o'clock. Entry fee is a £10 slot car related item, which will go into a pot, and then everyone picks a present at the ultimate. There's a tombola-y sort of a thing at the end where everyone picks a present, and that's nice. And we'll do 4 stages. We reckon 16 people, four cars per person, 4 stages, 4 people per group. Yeah, that's all right. You can do that in an afternoon. So yeah, that's the plan. And then go to the pub.
If I can come along, I'm going to do it.
I will put a note on our Farnham scalextric. Sorry, not Farnham. Farnborough Park.
Farnborough, old habits die hard. Old habits die hard.
Farnborough Park Scalextric Club Facebook page, and on Slot Forum, if I'm allowed back on there again. Might
Just
not
put the flag of Switzerland on it or something. Yeah, you'll be all right.
I could put my bright yellow Subaru with the Swiss flag on the roof.
Yeah.
plans for me.
Right. Before we return to any of that sort of controversy, we shall call it a day. And this is now, I'm thinking, will we, if you excuse the expression, squeeze in another one? A bit like mince pies. There's always room for another one. And the notion I've got is if I can get along to the practice slot rally on the 27th, that might be quite good fun to try and record a podcast in the midst of a bunch of grown men having eaten too much food.
Yes.
And coming to terms with their slot rally cars. But in case not, we shall wish everyone a Merry Christmas, which is, depending on when I publish this, days or hours away. And if we don't speak to you before the end of the year, have a happy new year, and we will be back pestering you with tales of slot rally cars and other stuff as soon as we can.
A peaceful time to one and all. Happy Christmas.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. Bye, everybody.